hearing some background noise. I don't know if I need to fix that, because that's getting a little annoying. I reduce the volume there. Hopefully you can hear me. Maybe one more second to test out that new setting. Alright. And then my AC kicks on so you can hear that, some whatever background noise. I don't know if I need to... Alright, so I think that cleared it up. Alright, welcome to Humane Mind Live, episode 134. Mr. Jones and me. Meh. I could have done better, but I'll take it. Now when I put my notes away, had those pulled up a little earlier, and for some reason I minimized everything and they went away. Shouldn't have. Alright. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth. Hopefully I'll keep watch of the chat if anybody ends up joining me, but Mr. Jones is not actually joining me in this stream, but I just saw the last name Jones and was thinking of what I could title the stream, and that's what came to mind, because an old Counting Crows song, and if I was actually trying I could hit it, but I mean, that was sort of an attempt was made. So that's the main topic I'm going to talk about, because obviously this week, last week was the DNC, this week is the RNC, and there's a couple of takeaways that a lot of people were talking about, but the speech from, I thought this one was the most impactful for me, of the ones that I sat through the whole things. So there's only a couple of speeches where I sat through the whole thing, and this one's one that was like, this is what people need to hear and need to see. Then we're also going to be talking about the long con. So that's a little misleading on the name, but it makes sense once you see the video. And then DC stops sucking? Maybe? Because I don't know if this week was Comic-Con or last week was Comic-Con or something like that, but there's a lot of news coming out about upcoming comic book related films and video game stuff, and some of those trailers I was like, because I did not watch Man of Steel, I did not watch Batman vs. Superman, I did not watch the Justice League. The only one of that, I didn't watch Aquaman, and the only one I was interested in seeing was Wonder Woman, but by the time I got around to actually watching it, it was already out of theaters, and I haven't seen a streaming service that has it available. I've been looking. It was kind of the same way with the Star Wars films. I couldn't find a streaming service that had, what was the Force Awakens. There were streaming services that had Solo, there were streaming services that had, whatever the other two Star Wars, but I couldn't find one that was streaming The Force Awakens, and so I never bothered. And then now that I got Disney Plus or whatever, I got access to all the Star Wars, and I ended up watching The Force Awakens, and I was like, yeah, I should have probably just gone without, because man, that was disappointing. That was like a fan film, like a. It was the quality I would expect of a fan-made film about Star Wars, and not the quality I would expect from the studio that owns the rights. And I'm sure that fan-made films would actually do better justice to the source material. Ugh, so bad. But now going back to DC, so Wonder Woman was the only one that I actually was interested in watching out of DC's recent fare into the, the cinematic universe. But what I'm hearing is there's some interesting developments in the multiverse line that, leading up to Infinite Crisis and things like that, that DC is building towards. I'm not sure how much of that is just in the TV shows and how much of that is going to span into the movies, and they've already had some crossovers. From what I understand, is Michael Keating's Batman is coming back in some form or another as an older version of Batman, possibly being the Bruce Wayne in an upcoming Batman Beyond film, which could be interesting. I was not a fan of the TV show or the animated series Batman Beyond, but the concept is good. And if you've got Michael Keating coming back as the older version of Batman, mentoring a new Batman, I forget his name. But a Batman in a futuristic setting. That would be kind of cool. There's so and also the guy who played the Flash in the Justice League movie was also playing the Flash in the show or something along those lines, and they're coming out with a Flash movie that's gonna tie all that together. But the timing could not be more detrimental to DC's plans, because that's exactly the way that Marvel is currently going. Because it's expected that, with WandaVision, this TV show coming out, or maybe it's already out, I'm not sure, and Doctor Strange 2, that's when everybody is kind of theorizing that they're going to introduce mutants, and the Doctor Strange 2 is actually called Multiverse of Madness, which is where you get into all these alternate universes of Marvel superheroes, and then you're going to have Marvel going into different universes with different characters or different versions of characters that exist, and then you're going to have DC kind of doing the same thing. Now, in the comic books, DC does it better. The Infinite Crisis or Crisis on Infinite Earths, or I can't remember the exact name of the comic or the story arc, but I keep hearing it referred to as Infinite Crisis, so that's what I'm going to refer to it as. That was better than what I've seen of Marvel's multiverse stuff. Marvel seems to be better, or at least to me, of doing the galactic storylines with they've got a ton of cast of characters, Silver Surfer and all of them. From what I don't dive deep or into comics. I'm kind of still wading in the shallow end of comics for the most part, but it's deeper than most people. Like, I'm not just dipping my toe in as far as comics go. So I know a lot of the story arcs and a lot of the source material, and I've read some of the comics there. But so more so than the mainstream, but not as much as some of these comic book nerds who have, they live in that sort of thing. But from what my understanding is, Marvel is better at generating a large cast of characters that has different story arcs throughout the universe. But DC's handle of the multiverse is a much better implementation, because the storyline of Crisis on Infinite Earth is Superman is a bad guy who's there's a version of Earth where Superman is the bad guy and Lex Luthor is trying to stop him. And so you've got a good Lex Luthor and an evil Superman. And the good Lex Luthor from his universe comes to the main universe where Superman's the good guy and is requesting their help to stop this evil Superman. And it's this really interesting dynamic, because it kind of turns everything on its head. And you've got multiple versions of the Flash, multiple versions of these superheroes. So it's their take on that, and I think they were first to do that. Whereas the Marvel, when they go into different multiverses, that's where you've got the Marvel Zombies, which apparently is canon because it's in the multiverse, stuff like that, where it's like, it's kind of interesting little one-shots, whereas at least from what I've seen, is like, oh, that's kind of unique sort of thing with Marvel, whereas DC built an entire expanded universe in using multiverse, to create these ongoing long stories where the universes are interacting and clashing with each other, whereas Marvels seem to be just like, oh, these people jump to this other universe and then they experience stuff there, and then they'll jump back, and then the relations between the multiverses don't seem to be as interdependent or as linked. That's what I'm trying to explain here. Anyway, sorry. So there's trailers dropped for DC stuff that look surprisingly good, and for the first time in years, I'm actually excited about an upcoming DC film. The last one that I actually saw in theaters was Joker, and while it was a very well done film, it ended up grossing a lot of money. I think it would have been a good film with or without the Joker, and the fact that they were willing to do that with the character like the Joker just kind of made it better than what it would otherwise be a film that is good not because of the message being good, but a film that is good because it does what it was so well done. What the intent of the film, right? Everything was crafted together for that narrative, and that's I guess that's probably a poor way of describing it. But there was no, when I was watching the film, I didn't see like, why did they do that? Well, that's stupid. Why was that in the film? There was anything that did not seem to tie into or build that sense of uneasiness or tension or uncomfortable. Anything that didn't build towards that or make that more dynamic seems to like they've left it on the cutting room floor. And there's so many other films where they leave that, and you're like, well, you could have cut that out and it would have been a much better film, or it needed something else to bolster something else that was cut. So there's a lot of that going on in films where you're kind of like, and okay, this is going back to last week's the film The Guest is one of the first things that clicked with me when I started watching the film. Is the first few minutes of the film there is no dialogue, and the camera pans to the display on the mantle of the sun and his the flag and his what's that called shadow box. Man, couldn't think of the term. So it pans to the pictures of the sun in a war. He's wearing his military uniform in the shadow box, and no dialogue is passed between characters. And then there's actual some dialogue, although the dialogue is very basic. It's not like Shakespearean or anything like that, but it's conversations you would expect people to kind of have, but they seem kind of generic. But it worked so well because of the early establishing shot that told a story. And I was thinking at so many other films where they have the characters describing the situation because they need somebody to, I'm gonna, what's that called? Exposition, right? Exposition needs to be delivered here, so we're gonna all sit and talk, sit around in a circle, and I'm gonna tell you what the story is, as if you're new here, even though you are a character that's familiar with what's going on, and I'm going to describe it to you, but it's not for you, it's for the audience sake. And it's like, I saw that in that film, and I was like, that is a sign that the filmmaker understands the medium of film, and that you can tell a story and the audience should pick up on it, and you don't need to have this intro of a little in the year blah 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 this and this and that. Like, those annoy me so much about so many films with like, in the future we ran out of oil and now everybody lives on the sea, or there was a devastating war between the humans and the robots. And it's like, show the war, show the situation, and people will figure out what's going on. You don't it's so annoying when to have somebody, it's like you took this 5-minute section to explain the story, which you would have figured out in the first 5 minutes of the actual action of the film. for Star Wars, it's kind of built into their formula because they do that. It's they hit you with the music and the scrolling text. It's necessary, but so many other films do the same thing. And it's like, oh, just generic text at the beginning to set up a story, and you're like, show the story. It's obvious what's going on. And I'm sure there are test audiences that like, I couldn't follow the story. Yeah, because you're trying to appeal to those people. You're annoying the crap out of the 90+% of the normal audience who isn't brain damaged, who actually could follow the story. Anyway, so when you see things like that, and it's like going back to the Joker, man, I keep going into the topics themselves rather than just touching on them. It's already 7 o'clock, so I already spent 15 minutes, and I have... Okay, so... I kind of almost talked about everything I kind of wanted to talk about in the DC Stop Sucking without showing the actual trailers and stuff, but what I saw that in the Joker as well, as in everything had a purpose, nothing was repeated for the sake of the audience. It used the format efficiently to tell a specific story or a specific narrative, and while the narrative made you feel uncomfortable and kind of like, ooh, this is very bleak outlook for humanity, that's the intention of the filmmakers. That's the story they wanted to. That's exactly what they wanted. It didn't leave you with this ambiguous, well, what was the point of that, or why did they make that decision, or why was that left in there, or why was that not explained. It didn't. Everything was self-contained, and it was done masterfully. So Joker was done well. And now it seems like DC is kind of like, oh, we should actually make all of our films as actual films instead of whatever they were trying to do before. I don't know what they were trying to do before. I mean, all right. So then I've got this Vox Machina, and that's kind of related to a topic. So last week, but kind of interesting. And then our ending clips, there's 3 of those, but they are very much related to each other. All right, so let's just start off with this this clip here. This is, I don't know if I'll play the whole speech, but maybe I'll play it and I'll keep pausing it and interjecting little things. But this is a really good speech. I was not expecting this at all.
Hello, America. My name is Vernon Jones, and I'm a state representative from the great state of Georgia. As you can see, I'm a man of color, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, too. You may be wondering, why is a lifelong Democrat speaking at the Republican National Convention? And that's a fair question, and here's your answer. The Democratic Party does not want black people to leave their mental plantation. We've been forced to be there for decades and generations. But I have news for Joe Biden. We are free. We are free people with free minds. And I'm part of a large and growing segment of the black community who are independent thinkers, and we believe that Donald Trump is the president that America needs to lead us forward.
Man, that is so good. And it's so, yeah, so he's not a House of Representative Democrat. He is a state representative, so he's the representative in the state of Georgia. He doesn't go to D.C. and hang out with AOC. But he is a Democrat, and he's recognizing, even though he probably is more leaning towards social programs and things that are more aligned with the Democrats, he understands that Democrats don't actually care about what they say they care about. They just care about votes and power, and they're doing... And when they actually get in power, they treat black people like they're insignificant, like they're just, oh, thanks for your vote, now get lost, sort of thing. And you'll be back in 2 or 4 years, depending on what the situation is, and you'll vote Democrat again. So we don't need to do anything to actually fulfill any of the campaign promises we made. And so I'm glad he's seeing that, and he's seeing so he mentions Joe Biden and his political career and how he's done nothing, or nothing at the very least, and detrimental things at the very worst.
This is no time for sleeping in the basement. Joe Biden has had 47 years to produce results. But he's been all talk and no action, just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah, that's so refreshing to see somebody who is a Democrat and who is black to just like see straight through their BS. Because I've seen so many people, leftists say, "Oh, this is great," and I was like, "Dude, are you guys out of your minds?" There's so many crazy people who think that was appropriate, and there's so many moderate and intelligent people who are like, this is outright pandering, and this changes nothing.
As if pandering were enough to keep us satisfied. Let me tell you why I'm supporting our president. I grew up in the South, in Laurel Hill, North Carolina, Scotland County, the Green Pond community to be exact. My parents, Robin and Rufus Jones, built with their own hands a 4-room cinder block home with no indoor plumbing. They had very limited education, but they instilled in us a strong work ethic that drove me from those tobacco fields of North Carolina to those hallowed halls of the Georgia General Assembly. My parents taught me if I believed in God, worked hard, and treated every person fairly, there was no limit to what we could achieve.
And that was the same message the Democrats would often use, like even just, 16 to 20 years ago, that was kind of the narrative from both parties. And then somewhere in there, the narrative completely changed to you still can't do anything. That's the craziest thing is, in that time frame, a black man was elected president, and the narrative switched from you can do anything as long as you work hard for it and as long as you do. It switched from that to you can't, no matter what you do, you will never succeed because the system is rigged against you. It's like, I don't remember that message being there. Like, I remember being against Democrats for their policies. I remember not liking them for certain positions they had on taxation and on, more wars and how to handle different political situations with other countries. But I don't remember them ever saying that you can't be what you wanted to be. And actually, I thought that was kind of the message, the reason to get Obama elected as president. It's like, see, you can do anything. You're not held back by your race. Even if you're black, you can be the highest elected office in the land. And it's like, and for some reason, it's the opposite message is what's being delivered. And you're just kind of like, I thought that was kind of how he got where he was, isn't it?
I attended North Carolina Central University, an historical black college. For generations, HBCUs have been the incubators that develop black scholars in math and science and religion, engineering, and politics. They have been important springboards for the black success. But Democrats haven't treated them that way. When President Trump took office, he changed everything. He delivered historic funding to HBCUs, and he guaranteed it for 10 years, something that's never happened in the history of this country. That gave our HBCUs stability, the chance to grow, and produce the next generation of black leaders. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He's also supported school choice to ensure that...
All right, so there's, so about halfway through his speech, and I keep pausing it, but, so I've got a recording here. During his speech, for some reason, so this was pointed out to me in a Mark Dice video, and I'm sure there's a lot of people talking about it on Twitter and other platforms. For some reason, during this speech, Fox, so while it was airing live, Fox was jumping in and talking over this speech. They had different panelists and it's like, why? Like, because what I'm doing is I'm interjecting stuff in between, so that way I'm actually transforming it. I'm adding commentary, so it's not just me, using copyrighted material and that sort of thing. I'm actually analyzing it, adding to it, talking about and interjecting other stuff. But what they were doing is just talking over it, so you couldn't actually hear the original speech. And it's like, maybe they thought it was pandering to the Republican audience that already knows this stuff, but for me, I was like, this is kind of the message that they need to hear more so than, the full message from Nikki Haley and all this sort of stuff. That to me seemed more like, okay, that's more, yeah, we already know what she's gonna say. That's run-of-the-mill sort of thing. This seemed kind of new and like, and if this was on Fox and they were actually airing his full speech, that's something that I think would do better at, going viral and be like, hey, if other networks weren't covering this speech, but Fox was, that would be different. But for some reason, CNN, from what I understand, aired this full speech, but Fox didn't. It's like, if any network should have had this full speech on it, should have been Fox. But now people are going to point to like, see, they're racist, they're talking over the black guy, or they're talking over, yeah. I don't know. But C-SPAN and OAN from Mark Dice's account did the full speech. And so even though this is the C-SPAN clip, Dinesh D'Souza uploaded this section of it for me, thankfully. I mean, not for me specifically, but he uploaded that to YouTube because this speech is powerful. And I was like, wow, this is the full speech, and I don't have to worry about timestamps or anything like that. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to use this version, because, yeah. Anyway.
That no child, no matter their race or zip code, is left behind. Every child should have access to a quality education. But education is just the beginning. The president also built the most inclusive economy ever, with record low unemployment for African Americans and record high participation in the workforce. He put opportunity zones in the Trump tax bill that would drive investment into our communities for decades to come. He put the interests of American workers, and especially black workers, first. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He delivered historic criminal justice reform. He ended once and for all the policy of incarceration of black people, which has decimated our communities, caused by no other than Joe Biden. Democrats wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that moment, I was like, okay, so it's a lot of this other stuff. I was like, I wasn't expecting this whole speech, but once he started giving the speech, I was like, okay, that makes sense. That took me by surprise as well. I was like, wow, that's the last thing I expected is for him to. I was like, oh, yep, okay, that's good. And then he circled back and was like, yeah, caused by Joe Biden. I'm like, a Democrat said that. Wow, that's something we know and we take for granted. But man, this guy is actually informing himself, and he's not just blindly following things. It's like that's, in my experience, very rare from what we've seen from Democratic politicians and just Democrats in general. It's like a lot of times they'll take a stand and be like very shallow knowledge of the subject matter, but it's like he understands it, and he's gone back and he's like, yeah, I know the full story. Is like, this is not just something that Joe Biden could have fixed, when he was vice president or whatever. This is something that's directly his fault for implementing these policies. And then it was never removed until Trump was there. It's like, yeah, this is a stupid policy. We shouldn't have it. The First Step Act was basically undoing Joe Biden's entire career.
Obama didn't want to do it, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris definitely wouldn't do it. But Donald Trump did it. He's also working every day to make our communities safer. As a former executive of DeKalb County, Georgia, I directed one of the largest public safety departments in the Southeast. I've seen tragic shootings on both sides. Officers killing citizens and citizens killing officers in the line of duty. Police officers are our fellow citizens. They live in our country. They have families too. They live in our communities. Unfortunately, Democrats have turned their backs on our brave police officers. They call it defunding, and it's a danger to our cities, our neighborhoods, and our children. Isn't it ironic that Democrat politicians have personal security to protect them? So why don't they forego their security and replace them with social workers, especially since that's what they want for you and me? Our police need more funding, not less, for frequent psychological examinations, for non-lethal remote restraint technology, and for more de-escalation and use of force training.
Yeah, it's like after this speech, I don't think he's going to run as a Democrat next time he is running for office. I think he is going to change it to an R, and hopefully keeps his seat when he does. I don't know what the politics of Georgia is or how entrenched they are in Democrat control, but I think they were one of the swing states that went for Trump in 2016, but I'm not certain on that. It's been a while, but yeah, after this, it's like he may be a Democrat right now, but you know, give it a couple of months. I don't think he's going to stay Democrat for long, especially after showing up at the RNC, and especially when he talks about the way other people have treated him just because of stating that he supported Trump. He still holds most of the same policies, if not all of the same policies he had when he ran as a Democrat, and it's just like, but he doesn't care about the R&D. He just wants people who get results, and he's seeing through the lies and the false promises on that a lot of Democrats are making, and he's like, so I don't know what his policies are, but I can see that at least he can see through the narrative, and that's more than most politicians can claim.
These are the common sense solutions that President Trump supports. True, sincere police reform. That's right. Donald Trump did that too. Education, jobs, safety, security, on issue after issue. And in just a single term, he destroyed these negative forces that have victimized the black community for decades. He gave us the opportunity to rise. Now, you know, when I made the public announcement of my support for President Trump, all hell broke loose. I was threatened, called an embarrassment, and asked to resign by my own party. Unfortunately, that's consistent with the Democratic Party and how they view independent thinking black men and women.
Yeah, that's so I think that right there is kind of like, yeah, if he tries to stay a Democrat, he'd be a fool. So I don't think he doesn't sound like a fool. He doesn't sound like he sounds like he's with it and he understands, and he's not, sticking his head in the sand like so many Democrats do. So I don't think he's gonna end up staying there. Maybe he'll go independent and not go Republican, but he's probably not staying Democrat.
But I'm here to tell you that black voices are becoming more woke and louder than ever. The Democratic Party has become infected with a pandemic of intolerance, bigotry, socialism, anti-law enforcement bias, and a dangerous tolerance for people who attack others, destroy their property, and terrorize our own communities. Mm-hmm. That's what this election is all about. And that's why right now, more than ever before, America needs Donald Trump in the Oval Office for another 4 years.
Man. All right. So the rest of these so I'm not gonna talk too much about the RNC. I didn't see all of the speeches. I saw his speech, and then Mr. Was it Alvarez? I didn't see all of Nikki Haley's speech, but that again, I've heard the basic summary of it, and it's like, yeah, that's to be expected. I've seen other people's doing their coverage, like all the Daily Wire guys and Crowder and some of these others who watched the whole thing and given their thoughts. But I haven't, unlike the DNC, I haven't seen, and I've been looking for it, like cringy, ooh, I can't believe they did that moments, and it's like, this seems way more polished, way more authentic, and even though it's scripted, like you could tell he was reading off of a prompter, it didn't seem inauthentic because those were his words, or at least it sounded like those were his words that he wrote, or at least maybe he had a speechwriter write for him, but it was written from his perspective with his tone, and that seemed very natural for him, even though he was reading off a teleprompter. Whereas there were so many times in the DNC clips, he was like, ugh, these people look so fake. They're reading off of the script, but it's like they don't believe what they're reading, or what they're reading doesn't sound like them. It sounds like somebody else putting words in their mouth, and they sound like puppets. And which is crazy considering how much pre-scripting there was in there. Anyway, but that's all I got on that. I'm gonna move on to the next thing here. So this is the what I had this topic, the long con.
Booyah, Jimmy Kramer, what's up, baby? You want me to come have sex with your wife later? I'm a bull right now.
So recently we were informed by a group of doctors that we're really sick. Bryce just can't seem to come to terms with it.
Yeah, maybe you're sick. I'm crushing it. Woo! Yo, we out here grinding every day. No sleep.
We have heart failure, COPD.
This guy's a professional buzzkill. I'm sorry that I'm on fire right now and you're 30% unemployed.
The doctor told me not to work, and rightfully so. We pissed blood today.
Tiger blood? This is my celebrity net worth, $1 billion gajillion.
Nobody trusts celebrity net worth. You're a glorified welfare queen.
Yeah, if I'm so sick as you say, then why'd I have my best month in 33 years? Printing money right now.
That's an understatement. Can we just read the test results?
Can you ever just live in the moment?
Well, Peter Schiff said.
So we don't speak that name in this house.
Alright, that moment I was like, dude, it's going in this clip. So I've been so this is Ryan Long, that's the name, Long Con. See it? So it makes sense, because it's the con that the stock market is doing well, even though the economy is kind of in the toilet. And I was like, yeah, that line right there. Well, Peter Schiff said, we don't speak that name. I was like, man, that's golden. Because Peter Schiff has been talking about for a while now that we are headed towards an economic collapse, and this just, the COVID just kind of, it's like, it's not what caused the economic collapse. It's kind of like the needle that pricked the bubble, and it was already deflating, and now it just it's like it was already shrinking because there was already holes in it, and now it's just a big freaking hole into the side of the bubble, and it's just deflating faster. It's probably, I don't know if he's actually used that particular analogy, but that's kind of the synopsis of what's going on and what's going on. The stock market right now, even though it's showing some gains after COVID is apparently over, supposedly, but we still need lockdowns. I guess I should rephrase that. COVID is effectively over, and because of that, the stock market went up, but they're still claiming that we should lock everything down. And it's like, even though the numbers are showing, yeah, this is no longer the threat that we thought it was. But so the same sources that are like, oh no, we need to stay locked down because anybody who dies of COVID, that's a tragedy that needs to be avoided at all costs. But those same people, I think it was CNN, because Crowder was talking about that. It's like CNN acknowledged that the economy didn't bounce back after COVID, and it's like, wait, that means we're after, right? It's over according to your own source. I think it was CNN that said that, but might have been like New York Times or something. Anyway, so it's a pretty funny skit. This guy is awesome, really good comedian. Churns out just funny stuff every, I don't know if it's every week or every other week or how often he turns out skits, but man, dude's on fire. Alright, so kind of a little more lighthearted, not political in nature.
You know the deal. Successfully complete the mission, you get 10 years off your sentence.
You're my dream, you're my nightmare. Life is a breeze, she don't fight fair.
Welcome Task Force X. These are your brothers and sisters for the next few days.
Run away from the pain, I don't care. 'Cause I think I need some guiding. No, the kids don't stand a chance. Old man, trouble back again. Had the upper hand, oh no, oh no. I'm back to the black again. My plans like, oh no, oh no. Old man, trouble back again. Thought I had the upper hand, oh no, oh no. I'm back to the black again. Getting to my plans like, oh no, oh no. First day in sight, the violence turn around, then day in fight, the silence turn it down. I think I need some guidance. No, the kids don't stand a chance. Oh no, old man trouble back again. Thought I had the upper hand. Oh no, oh no. I'm back to the black again. Getting to my plans like, oh no, oh no. Old man trouble back again. Thought I had the upper hand. Oh no.
Yeah, that's where I was like, really? John Cena? Okay, so this whole clip for the Suicide Squad, which I don't quite understand how they're doing this, because, so I think the casting in the original Suicide Squad was pretty good, which is why they seem to have kept a lot of the same cast as far as Viola Davis and Harley Quinn, or Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, and with Captain Boomerang and Joel Kinnaman as whatever his character's name is. It's kind of forgettable, but they kind of got rid of the other characters. I don't know if they died off in the other one or what, but the thing that's, so you can see some of the symbology here is this seems to take place in the 70s or maybe 60s, so I don't know how that works, because I think the other Suicide Squad, wasn't it set kind of like, you know, kind of in undetermined or unestablished, kind of anywhere from the 90s to 2000s, where you can't quite tell the difference. It's like it might be the 90s or it might be the 2000s or the 2010s. This seems like it's distinctly 60s or 70s. I don't know exactly what time frame they're shooting for, but I don't know how exactly they're going to work that, considering they're bringing back characters from the other one. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to get around that. But this, you can see this, they built this huge cast, and I can almost kind of guarantee that the good majority of them aren't going to make it through to the end of the film, which kind of, I didn't see the other one again, but I don't know how many people survived the other one. But I think from reviews, like, it was like everybody except for, like, I think 2 of them ended up dying off in that film, maybe 3 of the Suicide Squad, and just kind of like, it seems like this one, they've got a lot of characters that are kind of thrown in there just to be cannon fodder, which means that it's going to be kind of a unique film, and they're like, because there's so many, it's going to kind of be closer towards Deadpool, and or Deadpool 2, I should say, without, hopefully it's not giving too spoilers away. That film's pretty old, right? But they had it built up like they were building the X-Force and they all get wiped out in one scene. I don't think this is going to be like that, but I do think characters can actually die in this film, which is kind of new, or kind of a different feel compared to all the other superhero movies where you're like, yeah, okay, they're gonna kill like one or two actual characters. Oh no, the snap! All those characters, they're dead. No, they're not really dead. So any character that actually died didn't really die, and it's like, well, then when you end the number of characters, like, really, out of all of that, you lost what? A handful of actual, like, so what? Vision and Black Widow. Everybody else lived. Everybody else? Oh, okay, I guess they lost Quicksilver as well. And Coulson in the first Avengers, but he wasn't really an Avenger. Everybody else is alive. Anybody else who died that was a fake out in the form of Nick Fury not actually being dead, or... Yeah, nobody else died. Out of, what, like 9 films or something like that? Only, what, 4 people? But, okay, what did I say? It was Quicksilver, Coulson, Black Widow, Vision, right? That's it? 4? That's not realistic. And it's because they got these actors and they want to keep them around for a while, but it kind of eliminates some of the tension when nobody really dies. Oh, Tony Stark, yeah, Tony Stark ended up dying, so there's 5. Yeah, not a whole lot of high stakes when every character's gonna stick around because, hey, look, they're signed up for 3 more movies in the contract deal. This seems more like hey, we're just gonna throw a bunch of people in here and shake it up, and then like maybe 2 or 3 are gonna survive and maybe make more films, but for the most part, I think Margot Robbie's gonna stick around for a while, because even though the other Harley Quinn films, like the first Suicide Squad and then the recent Harley Quinn too long title, somebody should have slapped somebody before that actually got released, bombed as well. I think she makes a very good Harley Quinn. It's just this, whatever they've been putting her and her character in recently, I think this might be the first time where it was actually like, okay, it's a good Harley Quinn in a good film. That's at least the sense I get from these trailers and other stuff I've seen about this. Yeah. And there's this, which I'd heard that this film was in development and was coming out, but this was
5,000 years ago, Kahndaq was a melting pot of cultures, wealth, power, and magic. Yet most of us had nothing, except for the chains around our necks. Kahndaq needed a hero. Instead, they got me. I did what needed to be done, and they imprisoned me for it. Now, 5,000 years later, I'm free. And I give you my word. No one will ever stop me again.
Now, the presentation there seemed a little odd to me. Because, I mean, there's been rumors that The Rock was signed up to play Black Adam for a while. But the fact that it was kind of delivered in this still frame, semi-comic book style seems off to me. Does that mean that the film is going to be an animated film with The Rock doing the voice and with the images drawn to capture his likeness? Or is it an actual film? I'm interested to see how that goes. So Shazam is another DC film that apparently did well, but I didn't get around to watching it. And out of all of the DC films that are currently out, I'd probably want to see that more than Wonder Woman, but again, I haven't found a streaming service that actually has the film available. And who wants to go pay, you know, $5 or $6 or whatever for just a single film when you're like, yeah, I pay $14 for a subscription service. If that's not on there, I'm not paying, you know, that's a monthly fee for $14 or $10 or whatever, you know. I'm not going to pay half of that for just one film to watch for 2 hours. That's stupid. So I'm waiting for it to come out on some kind of streaming service or, you know, something like that. And again, it's kind of it's kind of a little bit back on my list, but so Black Adam goes with Shazam. I don't know if I'm not all that familiar with the Black Adam character, but it's got The Rock as a superhero, which is, yeah, he's already a superhero when he's not in a superhero film, so that's gonna be good. And especially, I don't know, so I'm thinking Black Adam is kind of like a foil to Shazam. I think he's like the evil Shazam, but then maybe he's kind of more like a Venom type character where sometimes he's a bad guy, sometimes he's a good guy. I think that's Black Adam. Again, I'm not all that familiar with the Shazam comics or his story arc, but I saw this, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I'm interested to see how that goes. But could be good, could be bad. This one, though, I was like, yeah, I can't not talk about this because this is like my 4th time watching this, and this is really good.
From your secret friend.
Underneath the bridge,
Who?
Topper sprung a leak, and the animals I've trapped
Haven't a clue.
all become my pet.
Let's play a game. Just me and you. Any of this mean anything to you?
You're becoming quite a celebrity. Why is he writing to you?
If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?
The hell are you supposed to be?
I'm vengeance.
This guy's crazy.
You're part of this too.
How am I part of it?
You'll see.
Man. Yeah. So, I don't know if that's going to be as good as the Christopher Nolan Batmans, but man, that looks so much better than the Ben Affleck and recent, Superman, but dark and gritty. The style on that, man, that is so good. And I saw screenshots and stuff of the Batmobile beforehand. I was like, oh, it's such a step down from the Tumblr. But seeing the film in action, you're like, dude, that looks really, really good. So hopefully that delivers when it actually comes out and is a good quality, like, yeah. I don't think it's gonna quite live up to Christopher Nolan's, but even if it's like, 80% of that, I'm like, dude, that's a good film. That's it's kind of as a breath of fresh air. DC has been piling crap lately. All right, man. Okay, and so I said this next. Yeah, I couldn't come up with anything clever, so I just called it Vox Machina, but it's interesting.
The adventure begins. They were always beside you, your nerdy best friends, and the DM to guide you. And they rise from the flames for the battles ahead. Villains beware, 'cause you're about to be dead. They got magic and flair. They got daggers and cunning. They don't see over there. There's a monster incoming. Inspiration is waiting. Rise up, don't think twice. Put your fate in your hands. Take a chance, roll the dice. Can you answer the call? Digging deep in your soul as the legend unfolds. Now it's your turn.
Alright, so, okay, I think I've mentioned this in the past, and I especially mentioned it last week, and I guess that's why this showed up in my recommended. They are having, they're turning it into an animated series, and so it got greenlit. That had a Kickstarter, and this was kind of like the intro animation they did, kind of like, this is almost like the test footage, although this is going to be the intro for the actual animated series. They put together this song, which I saw the making of, which is actually, it's actually Ashley and, man, I'm drawing a blank. What's her actual name? Anyway, the two, well, I guess there's three females in the, well, two of the voice actors who are part of, well, actually three, because Grog, the guy who does Grog, also did a voice, but, oh, it's right there on the side of the screen. Yeah, Laura Bailey and Travis. So Laura Bailey was doing some of the vocals. Ashley Johnson was doing the main vocals, and then Travis was doing the kind of the deep guttural critical roles. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So they're doing the animated show, and all of them are voice actors from video games and animes and other stuff. So they're going to be doing the voices in the show itself, which is kind of cool. And I don't know who's exactly doing the script and things like that, but this is started by the group that's doing the actual role-playing game. So they are very much hands-on with crafting the narrative, like it. And so the song itself was written by them and not some outside. So all the main vocals, I don't know about the chorus background and all that sort of stuff, but the people behind the show that make it actually entertaining to watch, and they add humor and make the characters come to life. If all of those people are this hands-on with the animated project, I'm kind of like, this is gonna be good. It's not out yet. It's supposed to be coming out at the end of this year, and it's one of the places I saw that it's going to be available is on Amazon Prime. So I'm like, yes, I've got that. So just waiting for that to drop. It's already been approved for 2 seasons, which is so they started the campaign trying to raise $750,000 and ended up raising over $11 million for this, which is ridiculous. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that means there's a lot of an audience, or quite a sizable audience for this, and I don't know about anybody else watching the stream, but there seems to be a glut of fantasy-oriented animation and just stories in general, that's I'm a bigger fan of the fantasy genre than than sci-fi or superhero stuff and all. That's why I was like, yeah, really into the Dragon Prince, which is the latest thing I watched, and I'm like, man, now it's back to fantasy glut, because a lot of anime is robot based, and I'm like, I can't get into the mech stuff, and it's mechs and vampires is a ton of anime, and I'm like, I don't want that. I want fantasy RPG isekai stuck in a virtual world stuff. Give me more of that. So this hopefully will kind of fill that void that and maybe there is a lot of that, and I just have watched so much of it, and so that's just kind of me having seen too much of it, and maybe it's not that there's a glut in this particular, and maybe it's just that I am consuming more than the usual person would, but for me it feels like there's a hole in the market. It was like, yeah, we need more fantasy style content, and orcs versus elves and dragons and monsters and stuff, and that seems to be lacking in the more recent films and entertainment that have come out lately. Anyway, okay, and so now it's the end. Gonna wrap this up hopefully by 8 o'clock. Should be nice. My brother couldn't make it. He had a meeting with for work, so, and I didn't have too much to go over, so like, okay, that'll work. Short little content. Let me check back with the chat. Yep, nobody in the chat, so I didn't miss anything there. All right, but I'm not sure how this ended up in my recommended, but I started watching these and kind of started like binge watching these for a while, for like, I don't know, past couple of days. Really good stuff, but I'll start off with this one. know that's not original to them, but... So, I think I don't know if I've said this before on stream before, and I was like, Guns N' Roses is an awesome band, and it would have been 10 times better if it weren't for Axl Rose. His voice is so annoying, and it works for Welcome to the Jungle and none of their other songs. I shouldn't say, so it works as in I can't imagine anybody else's vocals in Welcome to the Jungle and having that song have that visceral hit you in the gut and just drag you along. But Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine, anybody else could be put into that song and it would improve the quality of it by 10 times. Just get rid of him and replace him with another singer, and already the entire album is better. And just have him come in on Welcome to the Jungle. Because man, his voice is so annoying, and he's just really annoying as a person. Which is why the band kind of kicked him out and started Velvet Revolver with a good vocalist and had some of my favorite songs written during that time. No, who was that? Was it Chris Cornell? Right, he was the singer. Because I know there was a couple of those that were going around, like Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, that was Audio Slave, but Audio Slave was not Chris Cornell. Dang, I can't remember. I can't remember who was with what band. But much better songs, much better vocals, much better all-around bands when they switched out lead singers. Rage Against the Machine, I liked even with the old singer, but I thought... No, wait, which one was... Yeah, Audio Slave, right? Yeah, Audio Slave, I thought was an improvement on Rage Against the Machine. And Velvet Revolver, dude, like 10 to 20 times better than anything Guns N' Roses ever put out. Anyway, so this, I think, is a superior version of Sweet Child of Mine, simply because, like, the guitars and the drums, everything is on point, and then the singer is really, really good. So this is a band called First to 11. Okay. It does seem a little overproduced, but they do a lot of really excellent covers. So like I said, I've been binge watching these. So I got a couple of these highlighted that have been my favorite so far that I've seen. Man, that bass is so much better. Drummer is really entertaining to watch in this one, but they don't always have the same drummers in every video, so I'm not sure. Man. Man, that was nice. So good.
I know that dress is karma, your perfume regret. You got me thinking about when you were mine. And now I'm all up on you, what you expect. But you're not coming home with me tonight. You just want attention. You know I'm not yours. Maybe you just hate the thought of me with someone new. Yeah, you just want attention. I know from the start. You're just making sure I
This is so much better than the original. I mean, it's a pretty bold to claim it's the best cover ever, because you're going up with Whitney Houston's cover of what is that? The Bodyguard song, "I Will Always Love You." That's a cover. That's way better than the original Dolly Parton. You also have Framing Hanley's "Lollipop," which is I think that's my favorite cover of all time. There's also what's the name of that? I Prevail's version of "Blank Space." Super good cover. What was that? Seether's "Careless Whisper." That's, yeah. So I don't know if this is, but I would definitely put this in a group with all of those really awesome covers. I don't know if it's the best, but it's at least in the running for the best. Because I like the original song as well, the Charlie Puth's "Attention." But this one is just so much more engrossing than the original. And like, just that bass just hits me. I'm like, man, I must have watched this one, like, I think this is, what, like 10th time watching that? Or this cover version of it. Yeah, really good. And then I've got this other one queued up here, which this one not quite as good, but that's because the source material I don't like as much. But this was, I was like, oh, this is much better than the original. Much better than the original. It's just that small. Not gonna play that full song, but it's like, compared to the original Gaga version, it's like, man, that is a much that's much improved on that. So sometimes their covers are kind of just, hey, that song only with this band doing it, and it doesn't seem like good, but it's not like wow. But then occasionally you hear this one who's like, that version so much better. Now I do think the Frog Leap guys are better because they transform the songs a lot more than this group does. Well, I think it's just one dude, and with guests coming in, as you can kind of see on the side, their metal cover of "Carry On My Wayward Son," because he will add guitar solos in there and change the song pretty dramatically. That's why I was kind of saying this they seem a little overproduced, because they do a cover every Thursday. With that kind of schedule, there's not too much you can do. It's probably most of the time just learning the song and then maybe throwing in some. So there are a couple of ones that they've done covers of where they've actually included extra stuff and made it different. And they do have guests come on as well at some other singers have joined them, and I was like, oh, I need to add them as a channel to follow because that was really cool. Stuff like that. But, and I think the 4 in this video is the current lineup of the band. As far as I've seen, she's always been the main singer, and the guitarist has always been the same, but the bass player changes out, the drummer changes out. Like the guy who's playing drums currently used to be the bassist, or was previously a bassist, or in some videos rhythm guitarist, and now he's doing drums. I don't know what happened to the other drummer, but I think this is the current setup of the band, is just those 4, which seems to work out really well. They all seem to be very comfortable on their instruments, and you can tell that they're definitely getting more into the actual songs, you know, moving around more when they're playing and not just focused on making sure they're technically correct on the you know, the notes they're playing and stuff like that. They're having more fun with it in the videos, and also whoever's doing the videos is changing up their style, and because a lot of their earlier stuff, it's just the 3 camera thing. You know, you got shot from the right, or stage right, shot from the center, shot from the left, then it'll kind of switch back and forth, or sometimes it's just a single shot of the whole band, the entire song, and maybe some zoom-ins and stuff like that. But now they're splitting, you know, they're mixing it up as they go, so I don't know who's doing the video editing, but as far as I can tell, this is a group that was formed together when they were learning the instruments. At least that's the impression I get, because there's some kind of studio involved in this, and so they're all, I mean, you can see the instruments are like they're playing a new guitar every video and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, there's no way they could afford all this. It's got to be coming from somebody else who owns the studio space, owns all the recording equipment, and teaches them how to play the songs and the instruments, and that's why some of their songs sound just like, I mean, a cover, but it's just kind of like, it's me doing this song in the exact same manner as the original. And I think in order to do a cover well, you have to change it and make it yours. And that's what makes that's what makes really good covers that stand out. Like, was it the Smash Mouth Fairy Tale? And it's like, dude, like, you can play that side by side with the original and you can't tell the difference. What did you add? Why not just play the original? Why do you need your cover version? I can't, I don't like those. But sometimes there is like, well, sometimes it's just the fact that the original was sung by a dude and this one is sung by this girl, and sometimes it's her vocals are way more on point than the original. Like, they do a version of Just a Girl from No Doubt, and I was like, you can tell, even though she is like 6 or 7 years younger than Gwen Stefani was when she was singing that song, but you can tell, I was like, she's got so much more control over her voice and her range when she's singing. Like, Gwen Stefani wrote the original song, so she's got more comfort with it, but there are elements she added that were kind of like Gwen Stefani adding her personality into the song, which when the girl here, I forget the name, Audra, something like that. I don't know, it's in the comments all the time, whatever. Something along those lines. So you can tell when she's singing it, she's got more control over it, but it doesn't have that "this belongs to me" type feel. But overall, I'm like I've said, I've been binging these covers because, like I said, they do one every week, so there's this huge catalog of all these songs, and I'm like, man. And so sometimes I'll like, not interested, and pass, but every once in a while I find one that's like, ooh, that's really good. I like that one, and that needs to go on my playlist or something like that. Add it to my Spotify catalog. So there are a lot of good versions. You know, sometimes it's just it's a good version of the song, but I don't care for the original song, so I'll just pass that as well. Like, I'm not interested, but they do a lot of really good covers, and I'm surprised at how good these guys are on their instruments, considering they all look like they're in their... That I don't think any of them is older than 20, except for maybe the bass player guy. And I'm like, man, it's pretty impressive, to say the least. Anyway, that's all I had for tonight. So it's a little after 8. I don't see anybody in the comments. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. So thanks to anybody who joined me, and I will try again next Tuesday. Try for 7 o'clock. Today I started a little early because I do have, well, sometimes these go a little bit longer, and I have something at 9 o'clock, so I was like, oh, if I end up going longer, and then here it is, it's like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, wow, I was, I had a whole 50 extra minutes to work with. Whatever. I started 15 minutes early just in case. But turns out didn't need it. I got through everything I wanted to get through, and that's it. So I will see you guys next Tuesday.